2025 has been a wild season thus far, producing some iconic moments such as Todd Kidd's back-to-back Ajax 200 wins, Diego Orkedi becoming the active Ajax Cup Series all-time wins leader in West Virginia, Shane Park scoring his first oval win in nearly 2,000 days at the Stoneyard, and Braden Bennett scoring his first Cup Series victory at Disney in just his 22nd start to snap Toyota's drought. If you want to cop any of those replica diecasts, head on over to Circle B Diecast/Plan B Sales and use coupon code ASCA to get free shipping on any orders $20 or more at checkout. Hello and welcome back to another edition of the ASCA Weekly Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Fallon, back in here with another episode, and it's here. It is finally here. It is championship week at Belltown. So naturally, we have a lot to discuss from the penultimate weekend of racing in San Diego and West Virginia. West Virginia was seemingly uneventful, but it really does set the stage for the finale next week in the Cup Series, and San Diego was certainly extremely eventful in the Craftsman series, and we'll discuss all of that as well. So yeah, let's get into it. But first, we got to shout out the sports from your partners, Rowdy Energy. You already know, click that second to top link in the description box below, just under the Ajax Cup Most Popular Driver voting, which closes in just a few days as soon as the checkered flag drops on the Ajax season finale. So quick plug for that as well. Go cast your vote for your favorite driver before that closes. And then Circle B Diecast/Plan B Sales. Use coupon code ASCA for free shipping on any orders $20 or more if you want to buy a replica Todd Kidd or Diego Orkedi diecast. Obviously, those are the two title protagonists going into a showdown this week for the championship. So if you want to cop any of their diecast, go over to Circle B Diecast/Plan B Sales to do just that. So once again, shout out Rowdy Energy, shout out Circle B Diecast/Plan B Sales, and yeah, let's get into it. So there's basically two words to describe what we saw on Saturday afternoon in Morgantown: Diego Orkedi. This guy is unbelievable, man. And I bring this up every time Diego wins at West Virginia, seemingly. I feel like I do. But it's just worth noting that in his first three starts at this track, he finished no worse than 12th. This was like statistically by far his worst track on the calendar. He had DNS in his first two starts here. He was mediocre in the first race here in 2020. And this track just seemed to give him fits. And even after his absolutely obliteration of the field in the inaugural West Banco 250, his 22nd victory over the competition that day, still an ASCA record to this day, mind you. It was never like great here. You know, he wasn't terrible, wasn't DNFing like he had been in his first two starts, but he never was like great here. He just kind of had that win. But recently, he and Orkedi Bros Racing, I don't know what they figured out since we came here in 2023 for the West Banco 250, and he won that race. But this 22 has been unstoppable in Morgantown. Unstoppable. That is now, with his victory on Saturday, that's 4 wins in the last 5 races for Diego at West Virginia. 4 wins in the last 5. 5 straight in total for Orkedi Bros Racing. They clearly have this track figured out to a T. It is ridiculous. And I think the main key for Diego's dominance at West Virginia is just how hooked up they are on the bottom lane. I think throughout the weekend, especially in the race itself, you saw a lot of guys searching around, specifically Todd Kidd, and we'll get to him in a second. But we saw him searching throughout the day, searching middle, high, ripping the fence. Some guys tried to search on the bottom, but if your car's not glued to the bottom, it's probably not going to be a viable option. You're going to lose time. So with that in mind, a lot of guys were searching. And Diego's a guy that's never been afraid to run the top himself. He'll venture up there. He knows how to rip the fence. He just did it last week to pick up some positions late in the Apple 225 and keep Todd Kidd at bay late in that race. So he knows what he's doing up top. If he needs to go up top, he will, but he didn't have to. And that's the key. Obviously, the bottom is the shortest way around the racetrack. So if you can get your car hooked up on the bottom, that's where everyone wants to be. And there was really only one car I saw all weekend that was consistently lap after lap after lap after lap hooked up on the bottom of the racetrack. And it was by far Diego Orkedi. Practice on the bottom, qualifying on the bottom. And I think he was even sandbagging a bit in practice and qualifying, not really showing his true hand, because I think if he did, we would have gone into Saturday knowing that this was going to happen. And I mean, a lot of people did still know it was going to happen thanks to Diego's past track record here, but he is only P2 in both practice sessions, P4 in qualifying. Like clearly the car was a lot faster than that. That's what I'm trying to get at here. So even with him sandbagging, Orkedi is just unbelievable. And this win moves him up to second on the all-time wins list. He now ties his career high for wins in a season with 4. And now he and Todd Kidd go into the final race of the campaign level on points. And before we move on to discussing the finale and how close of a championship fight this is, I want to give a huge shout out to Nick Orkedi. I don't think he's going to win one final race before he goes out, which is a shame. It really is. He's been plagued by bad luck his entire Swan Song campaign. A lot of his DNFs just have not been his fault, and that's really been kind of the story of his career since his championship run in 2016. The reason he hasn't been able to capture one, I don't think, is because of talent. He hasn't been washed up per se. He's just had a lot of bad luck, and I think that part more than anything else has frustrated Nick to the point of retirement so early. He is only 35 years old, but I think these last 2 weeks have proven that Nick never left. The reason he hasn't won in 50 plus starts, I don't think is because, he's washed up now, or, is he still in the prime of his career? No. Has his championship window closed? Yes. But he is not the driver that was 15th, 13th in points for most of the year. This is the Nick Orkedi that we should have seen the entire season, and we just haven't because of bad luck. But that's back-to-back runner-up results for him, and just a stellar way for him to close out his career. And obviously, I definitely hope that he is able to get one final win at Belltown to close out his career. I don't know. It's going to be I won't say it's unlikely, because he has won at Belltown before in 2018. Coincidentally, Diego Orkedi also won the championship that night. We could very well see that again transpire this Saturday evening. But we'll talk more about this next week as Nick puts a bow on what's been a fantastic career. But it's going to be an emotional final race for him. And I just wanted to give him a shout out because he's been outstanding these past 2 weeks. And if he didn't have all the bad luck that he has, I think he could be in that mix for 4th or 5th in the standings right now with the way he's performed as of late. just incredible job. And yeah, so another 1-2 finish for Orkedi Burrs Racing. They have all the momentum right now. I think that's pretty clear. And especially with the whole Todd Kidd, Ross Jackson saga. Obviously, they did meet on track on Saturday, which you could say that's a little fishy, isn't it? Considering Ross Jackson conveniently failed inspection. But, I don't think there was any ill will on Ronnie Woods. I don't think he would deliberately give Ross Jackson an illegal car so that he wouldn't be an issue. Like that's just jumping through too many hoops. I think that the team is just the 88 team was just pushing too much. They were fastest in first practice. They weren't as fast in happy hour. I think they overcompensated with adjustments, and that's when they made the car legal prior to qualifying. And rules are the rules. So they went to the back. Jackson had incredible recovery. And I still absolutely believe that this kid deserves a ride somewhere on the Cup grid in 2026. I think he will get that right ultimately, especially with the events that we just saw that transpired in the Craftsman race, which we're going to get to because boy, oh boy, was that controversial. But yeah, Orkedi Burrs Racing clearly has all the momentum. They've won the last two races. Diego has finished ahead of Todd Kidd in 4 of the last 5 weeks. And I look at it and we know that Diego has been there. He's done that before. Todd Kidd has not. He's been in the Cup Series for 9 years now. This is his 10th season. 9 tries, 0 championships. Diego Orkedi, 4 championships in the past decade. So Orkedi clearly has experience winning titles. And we'll get to previewing the finale in a bit, obviously, but let's just talk about what a titanic title fight it has been to begin with. For the first time in ASCA history, the points lead is tied going into the final race, and we are witnessing 2 of the best seasons all time in ASCA history. These are 2 of the best seasons by any driver we've ever seen. So to kind of put things into perspective for how historically dominant Todd Kidd and Diego Orkedi have been this year, they've combined to win 9 of the 15 races. No duo of drivers have ever done that in ASC history. Kidd with 5 wins, Orkedi with 4. Just last year, the most wins we saw any driver score was Laquan Scranton and Todd Kidd with 3. So to have not just one driver with 5 wins, but another one with 4, that is absurd. Just absolutely absurd. You look at their points total. They're level on 65 points right now. To put that into perspective, the driver with the least amount of points since we moved to this 16 race season was Randall Woods with 66 in 2021. Cameron Atwood, everyone thought he was so dominant in 2023, and he was compared to the competition that season. But he had 83 points in season's end. And he, I believe he finished, 3rd in the finale. So he didn't even have a bad run at that race. He just finished 3rd, and he had 83 points, which is outstanding for a driver in a season. But Caden and Orkedi, again, are level on 65 points. They're likely going to, if Atwood put together his 2023 campaign this season, he'd finish 3rd in points. That's how outstanding Kidd and Orkedi have been this season. Just on another planet from the competition, honestly. And we thought Shane Park was going to be a factor. He's obviously just completely fallen off the map. He's had a fantastic season. Just these guys have just been in a completely different league from everyone else. That's just kind of where they're at right now. So outstanding job from these two. And I want to shout that out because obviously there has to be one loser in the title decider next week. And this is one year where I feel like that shouldn't be the case because these guys are both, they both put together historic campaigns. For Diego, especially, this is impressive because he's never scored this least amount of points in a season during any of his title runs. Even last year, where he was incredibly consistent, his score was fourth. I believe he had 91 points at season's end. 91, which means he finished well behind the job that he's done this year. So that is insane to think about, considering he was head and shoulders above the competition last year. And for Todd Kidd, obviously, this has been a career year. And it just goes to show that these two are pushing each other to their limits. Ronnie Woods Motorsports and Orkedi Burst Racing have delivered the equipment necessary to their drivers. And the crazy part about it all is we could very well see a bump and run for the championship with how Belltown races. It might very well just come down to that. Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. But I think it's important that fans kind of appreciate. I know that, you know, a lot of people aren't happy to see the championship decided early, in a season. And I know a lot of people weren't happy to see it happen in 2023, with that one in 2024 with Diego. So appreciate this. This is the first title decider since 2022, only the second time this decade as a whole that the championship has come down to the final race. We don't get this every year. And, there's a reason for it. These races, these title deciders, these championship fights are supposed to be rare. They're not supposed to happen every year. They do happen every year like they do in Craftsman. I mean, that's great. But it makes them feel that much more special. And this season has certainly been special in many ways than one. It reminds me a lot of the 2023 championship fight that in the Craftsman series between Colin Ward and Sean Wooden, two drivers that put together historic campaigns on the Craftsman level, pushing each other to their limits. Every week, it seemed like they were finishing top five, going back and forth, with Sean Wooden nearly erasing, I should say, a 30-point deficit to Colin Ward to come back and win that. And we'll get to Wooden in a second because he has the inside track to his first Craftsman championship since 2010. But yeah, that's what this cup title fight reminds me a ton of. So I can't wait. This is the climax. This is the conclusion. This is what we've all been waiting for. This race at Belltown on Saturday night to settle it. So it's going to be incredibly fun. And yeah, can't wait for it, to say the least. Let's talk Craftsman, though. Sean Wooden, finally, he went into Friday, no wins, no poles, no laps led in 2025. He left Friday, one win, one pole, 52 laps led, and the unquestioned points leader by 7 over his teammate Graham Darty, heading into the final race of the Craftsman Series campaign. And first off, let's talk about the hot button issue. That incident that unfortunately has all but ended Tony Doval II's championship hopes. That incident between himself and Caden Dunham heading into turn 3. So, it's a tough situation here because I know there's people that think that the forward development program did this deliberately to ensure that one of their drivers would win the championship. I just think that's even blasphemous to even suggest that that's a possibility. No, there's no way that they would do that. The forward development program has been dominant this year. They've been dominant throughout the modern era. they don't need to pull a scheme like that to win a championship. They just don't. They're that dominant. They don't need to do that. And even though Tony Del Valle was absolutely flying, I don't think they were overall scared of his pace, because we saw in the last short track race at Disney, Sean Woodard grabbed Artie. They finished 1-2. They finished 1-2 in San Diego. Granted, that was with Del Valle out of the race, but still, I don't think that they deliberately told Dunham to wreck Tony Del Valle to win, to basically ensure that they would win the championship. I just think that this is a case of Caden Dunham really kind of bursting himself onto the scene as the ASCA's next supervillain, the next Diego Orkedi, which is quite ironic in a way, because growing up, Diego Orkedi was Caden Dunham's childhood hero. And now here comes the 17-year-old, born in 2008, mind you. So Dunham was 7 years old when Diego won his first championship. Put that into perspective. He's now 17, racing in the Craftsman series. Oh, also, he's going to be full-time next year. We're going to talk about that in a second. So yeah, he's going to be full-time next season. And in the Craftsman series, he won't be racing with Diego just yet, but just the fact that he was 7 years old when Diego won his first championship, his childhood hero, and now here he is, 18 years old, and you still got Diego competing for championships at the cup level. I just find that incredibly remarkable. And that just speaks to the dominance of Diego and Orkedi Bears racing throughout the modern era thus far. But yeah, for Caden Dunham, I think that he has burst himself onto the scene as public enemy number one, the latest public enemy number one. Because I get people, they're going to love to hate Diego. They're going to love to hate success. The second winningest Cup Series driver of all time. Mind you, he just passed CJ Barrymore for that honor, which is incredible. And 29 career wins, 4 championships. They hate to see him win. And the thing is, for Dunham, he has the talent to back that up as well. He really does. This kid is outstanding behind the wheel. And I get that he's reckless, but the raw pace is there. The raw talent is there. They just need to rein him in. And I think the Ford Development Program will do that next season. But overall, I think it's pretty clear he was at fault for the accident. He did come down on Del Valle. Now, I get it. Some people will say, oh, Del Valle dive bombed the corner. He could have backed off. Del Valle had a lot more to lose in that situation than Dunham did, and he should have probably thought that one through more. But again, he's only 18 years old himself. These are 2 teenagers going at it, racing hardcore. And especially for Del Valle, he sees Wooden and Darty as title contenders 1-2. He knows he's got to get up there after a poor qualifying. So he had descended. Dunham, was trying to obviously go defensive. Didn't quite work out too well. But I think Dunham was clearly at fault. He doesn't believe he's at fault. And either way, I think that we could be very well seeing another rivalry in the making. These are 17, 18-year-old kids. Who's to say that Dunham versus Del Valle isn't something we see for the next 10 years, a la Randall Woods versus Diego Orkedi? I think these 2 are incredibly special talents. And so just keep an eye on that moving forward. And we'll talk, like I said, we're going to talk more about Dunham in a second. But for Sean Wooden, this is huge. He's obviously sitting in the catbird seat now. And I feel much better about his title hopes heading into next week, especially with that 7 point cushion over Darty. He's kind of sitting in a position right now where he holds all the cards. Like, as long as he finishes top five, I believe it's fifth or better, no matter what Darty does. Well, I think it's fourth or better, actually, because if Darty wins, he'd get the tiebreaker for most wins, but he'd have to lead the most laps as well. So if Darty wins and leads the most laps, Wooden has to finish fourth or better to clinch the championship. And we've seen him in the past be able to do that before. He knows his way around Belltown. I I think as long as he doesn't lay an egg, he's going to be set here. So good ups to Sean Wooden. Big performance out of him when he needed it the most, especially that lap for pole position. His first time winning pole in 56 races. Boy, he was ecstatic jumping out the car. You could see the smile all across his face. And I think another huge factor in him getting the job done this week was the off week that Craftsman had. Um, just finally getting a chance to decompress and let his body relax a little bit after that vicious shot he took at Ajax Super Speedway. A chance for him to finally heal and get back to 100%, get back in form, and really kind of go all in for the final two races. He's sitting in the catbird seat. Normally, in the past few times he's pushed it to a title decider against Laquan Scranton and Colin Ward, he's been the challenger. This time, he's a challengee. He's the one being pursued. He's the one with the points cushion. And I think that for a veteran driver like himself, that is probably the more preferable position to be in. Now for Graham Darty, the rules are reversed from last year. Last year, he was the one protecting the points lead, having to, do what he could to keep up with Marcus Edwards. This time around, he's a challenger. He's the one that has to push the issue. He is the one that has to step his game up to another level and basically do what Edwards did last year, except not blow a tire late in the race and finish it off. So yeah, Darty needs to pull out an incredible performance. He has to be on it all weekend, and he basically has to win. When you're competing against a forward development program car, that's the catch-22 of competing against a teammate. You have the same equipment, so you can pretty much rely on both of those cars being right up at the pointy end of the field. And I think it's going to be incredible, though. I think that the storyline of mentor versus mentee, Wooden being brought into the team to mentor Darty being his protege and developing into the incredible talent that he is. Darty's going to be able to show off all that John Wooden has taught him the past 2 years, to very well deny him the opportunity to be the first multi-time champion in Craftsman history, and Darty being the first repeat champion in Craftsman history. It's going to be a fun race on Friday night. A really solid prequel to what we're going to see on Saturday night. So I can't wait for it, to be honest with you. I can't wait. This entire weekend is just going to be crazy. So going to be fun. And yeah. Now, as I said, I mentioned we'd be talking about Caden Dunham again. And in case you missed it, which I'm not sure how you did, the Ford Development Program did reveal their 2026 Craftsman Series lineup, obviously with Graham Darty and Adonde both moving up to the Cup Series. They had to fill not just one, but 2 seats for next year. And as expected, they went with their 2 hotshot young talents. So we'll start with the least controversial option of the 2. Obviously, Sean Wooden's returning in the 12 car, running it back for 2026 to mentor both of these guys. So keep that in mind when we get to who succeeding Graham Darty in the number 98. But as for Jordan Reinhardt in the number 99, really solid hire. Um, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what to think of Reinhardt so far. I think he's been solid in his first two Craftsman starts. He is a bit older. He'll be 21 next season from the Big Apple of New York. Um, like I said, I'm not sure what we're going to see out of this kid. He could be, it's pretty boomer bust, I would say. And him being on the older side certainly doesn't help his case. Um, we've seen that, especially in recent years, you really want to get a teenager, a guy that's 18, 19 years old when they first come into the series. So they get, basically, you want an extremely young talent. And Reinhardt is not that. He's a bit older. So, if he does spend a couple years in Craftsman, he's going to be 23 when he gets the cup. That's a little old because, again, you want to give him a couple years to develop in cup. And then once they develop in cup, that's when they start to hit their stride and eventually begin to hit their prime around their fourth, fifth seasons. Like we're seeing out of a Shane Park or even a Todd Kidd or even a Greg Healy, some of these big names in the past, even an Atwood, even a Braden Bennett right now, so little old for Reinhardt. So for him, it's going to be important for him to get going like that. Like he has to hit the ground running and really get off to a fast start next season. He can't take 3 years to develop in the Craftsman series, or I don't think he gets a cup ride at any point, but he's certainly in equipment. The best possible situation on the grid, I would say, of any, is to be with the Ford development program right now because they're on another level. They're about to wrap up more than likely their 6th championship in 12 years. The past 12 years, that is. Clearly, they've done an outstanding job developing talent over the years. So, Reinhardt, we'll see how he does, but I don't hate the hire. I think it's solid. Now, Dunham, Caden Dunham, honestly, I'm going to be real. I think it's a home run hire. And I know that people don't like this kid, but the raw pace is there. We just saw it at San Diego. He topped the charts in both practice sessions. The raw pace is there. Now, and especially when it comes to these young drivers, these young, inexperienced drivers, if the raw pace isn't there, then nothing else matters. That's just how it goes in the sport. That's just how it goes in racing in general. Now, if you have the raw pace there, eventually you can begin to establish finesse and build that up over the years, a la what we've seen out of Diego Orkedi in recent years. He always had the raw pace, but recently he's cleaned up his act. He has kind of reverted back to old form a bit this year, but clearly the finesse has been there with the outstanding season he's put together. That's what this Ford development program stint, I think, is meant to be for Caden Dunham, and especially with a mentor like a Sean Wooden. And we've seen the drivers that he has mentored gone on to do big things, like a Carson Schmidt, like a Graham Darty, like Ian Adonde. So you can't ask for a better mentor than Sean Wooden to help this kid kind of get his head on straight. And Dunham, though, I think overall, this is a really good moment for the sport. And why do I say this? I think there's one thing that this youth movement has been lacking, and that is this bold, brash villain, someone that's willing to embrace the black hat. Because I won't go as far as Dunham said to Jake Dwyer in his interview and call the young drivers of today this youth movement full of corporate pansies. But I will definitely say that you could say a lot of these guys are boring. They're not willing to force the issue. They're calculated. They're tactful, they're finesse based. You know, they do think long term, which is good. I mean, it's great to see these teenagers thinking like that and not making a ton of mistakes. But it is always nice to have that one guy that's willing to say, hey, screw all that. I'm just going to race how I'm going to race. And if you don't like it, tough luck. You know, that brash, that overbearing, that arrogant personality, that is what sells tickets. That is why, a lot of people for many years watch races just to see Diego Orkedi lose or just to see what he would do on track in general. So having that in the youth movement, I think is huge. I really do. I think it's mega. And so Dunham, I'm really excited to see how he does in 2026. I think he's going to definitely dice it up with a lot of these other rookies. There's a ton of rookies on the grid next year in the Craftsman series, and he is going to certainly make things interesting amongst them. That's for sure. That's going to be fun to say the least. But overall, Ford development program, it's hard to really say that they miss on Craftsman prospects because, again, you never heard of Graham Darty and Adonde before they stepped into the Craftsman Series seats, and look at what they've done the past 2 years. So, for Darty, he was the youngest Craftsman Series winner of all time, youngest winner in the sport's history before he stepped into the seat full time. But you get the point. You get what I'm saying. They don't generally miss when it comes to developing these prospects. So I fully expect Dunham and Reinhardt to be the future of the Blue Ovals moving forward. Now to the final point of contention in the podcast. Let's make predictions for the Little Caesars 100 in the Ajax season finale. Who wins the Craftsman Series championship and who wins the Ajax Cup championship? Now, in the Craftsman Series, this is a tough decision because Sean Wooden has been in this position before. He's lost in this position before, twice. Again, against Laquan Cranston and against Colin Ward. So what's he going to do this time? I don't know. Now, Graham Darty, we know he's been in this position before, and he hasn't lost. He just got the job done a year ago against Colin Ward and Marcus Edwards. Two drivers that have proven that, they're pretty capable talents. And at the Cup level, they've shown flashes of potential this year. Ward, specifically, I think he's going to be a future Cup star with what we've seen out of him in 2025. So that is a huge monumental victory for Darty. And again, he did that at just 18 years of age in his rookie season, mind you, competing against guys that were 21, 23 years old. That's massive. So, hey, I'll be honest. I'm having a hard time. I'm going back and forth here between these two, mentor versus mentee. But I think the points cushion is going to be too much for Graham Darty to overcome. I'll be honest. 7 points, that's a lot. Like, if Darty does not win or if he doesn't lead the most laps, Wooden can finish ninth while Darty finishes second. And I believe Wooden would get the championship. I don't quote me on that, though, because I don't know how the tiebreakers work. If they have the same amount of wins, it comes down to top fives and then top tens and then laps led. So I don't know, but you basically get what I'm saying, that 7 points is a lot to overcome. And Darty does not have an overwhelming amount of tiebreakers of Wooden. Their stats are extremely similar this season. I got the old man getting the job done. Give me Sean Wooden to win the 2025 Craftsman Series Championship. And then let's get to the Cup title decider. Todd Kidd versus Diego Orkedi. It all comes down to this. Level on points, blank canvas. It's basically like they're starting over at 0. And you want to end the season with -2 points. So, looking at what we've seen in the past few weeks, I look at Diego Orkedi as the runaway favorite. He's finished ahead of Todd Kidd. What was it? 4 out of the last 5 races. Now, the one time he didn't finish ahead of Todd Kidd, he led 158 laps and lost the race. But overall, Orkedi has had the best of Kidd since Todd went on that 3-race win streak back in, what was it? November, basically. Late October, early November, once he ripped off that 3-race win streak, Orkedi has responded. He immediately cut the gap down from double digits to 5 after San Diego with his win at Denver. And he's kind of kept it right around there before completely erasing it heading into now Belltown. Now, when you contextualize the fact that we are going to Belltown, and Diego Orkedi, this is probably his worst track, believe it or not. It's his home track, but it's also probably his worst one. Diego has been in 3 title deciders since 2016, 2017, 2019, 2022. He's lost all 3 of them, which is very interesting when you think about it. Like, Diego has never won a championship in a title decider. The years that he's won the title, excluding the strike shortened season of 2015, 2018, 2020, 2024, he clinched them all in the penultimate round. So he never has had to worry about Belltown. So traditionally, this race has always been a throwaway one for Orkedi, and he just doesn't perform because he's never needed to. So when he has needed to perform in a title decider, he generally, well, he did run well in 2017. He finished 3rd. 2019, he realistically didn't have much of a chance. Like, he entered, I believe, 21 back and was just needing to finish 19th or better. So he really didn't have much of a chance. That thing was over by like lap 77 or something. And then you look at 2022, he was running, I believe, outside the top 10 or something crazy before his transmission blew up and his title hopes were done 44 laps into the race. So I honestly don't know what to expect out of Diego at arguably his worst track. Now, for Todd Kidd, he's won here twice, but he also DNF'd here earlier in the campaign. So, but that was, again, due to something out of his control. His teammate blows the transmission coming to the green flag. I mean, what more can you do if you're Todd Kidd? So, this is going to be tough. You know, these two are elite level drivers. They're going to pull out something special. I know that traditionally Belltown is Diego's worst track. Todd Kidd does hold the advantage here, but I look at the momentum that Orkedi Racing has been on as of late. They've won the last 2 races. They finished 1-2 the last 2 races. And I get it. Equipment is going to mean a lot less at a short track, especially Belltown, than it has at these high-speed, aero-sensitive tracks, the Computer Motor Speedway in West Virginia. But I still believe it's advantage Diego. And thus, with that, I'm going to pick Diego to complete the drive for 5. That's who I'm going with. I'm picking Diego, man. We've seen this movie before out of Todd Kidd. He's tried his hand at winning a cup championship 9 times. He's failed 9 times. I don't see why that changes this year. He doesn't have the momentum. He has to worry about his own teammate taking him out. Um, I I I'm just not seeing it. I don't think it's the year. I'll be honest. I really don't. I just think there's too much inner turmoil at Ronnie with Motorsports. They don't have the cars to keep up with Orkidi Bros Racing right now. Diego, we already know he's won 4 championships. He performs in pressure packed situations. He's won 29 times in his career. I think Diego completes the drive for 5 on Saturday night. I'll be honest. I hate to say it for Ronnie Woods. I hate to see his record get broken. And, obviously for him, he definitely hate to see it be a double whammy. He loses his record and he loses the championship with his team and his driver. So that would certainly be tough. But I think that the unknown that Ross Jackson can play in this title fight and sabotaging Todd Kidd's race, I think that's just too great with the margins so thin between these two that I gotta go with Diego. So those are my picks for the weekend. I got it being just like last year, clean sweep of the championships for Ford. And it's a 35-year-old and a 34-year-old getting the job done. Sean Woodard and Diego Orkedi taking home the 2025 ASCA hardware. But let me know who you think is going to win the championships. Comment that down below in the comment section. And yeah, I cannot wait. The next time we talk on here, we're going to be recapping the 2025 season and talking about what goes down at Belltown this week as we crown some champions. So yeah, this is Charles Fallon signing out. We'll see you after the finales next week.